So on this special 1st of January edition, there should be no other guest than Mr. Santa himself. Mr. Santa, how you doing?
Very well, thanks. I like how you asked me if my surname was actually real before we just did this recording. Yes, it is. It's absolutely real. I guess it's very timely. It's very timely to be doing this recording with you.
Yeah, we was actually just discussing Rohit Santa is your full name.
Yeah,
and trying to get reservations in December using Mr. Santa is proving difficult.
Very much so. I mean, people think I'm being very festive, which is great, but they always have to ask me, is that really your name? And I have to say, yes, it's my name. Or sometimes someone doesn't say anything, but after I've given my name, I can almost see a small grin on their face. Like, I know what they're thinking, but I just let it slide. I'm used to it now.
Fantastic.
But it's good fun. It's good fun at this time of the year, actually.
Yeah. Very good. Your children think the same as well?
They won't. I do remember going through school, and whenever the name's brought up, you know, you get the usual school kids that make fun of you. Yeah. It helps build character. So I'm yet to see what it's going to do to the children and my nephews and nieces as well. So it's going to be the same thing. So I do feel for them.
Good, good. Where were you? You say you brought up? Where was that?
Yeah, I was brought up here in the UK.
Yeah.
No, as in, so what I was referring to was in school when we were giving our names, and, you know, people in the class would just call you Santa Claus and things like that. So. And, you know, all kinds of things. I've heard all the jokes.
Yeah. Very good. So today we've just got one half of the team. Do you want to just give us an introduction about yourself and your partner?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Rohit Santa, one half of Alliance Group. Myself and my business partner, Roberto Scandian, he couldn't be with us today. He's in Brazil, doing some work out there. And unfortunately couldn't be on with us. So it's just me you're going to have to put up with, Mark.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So you joined Property Entrepreneur, was it like COVID time?
It was. So before COVID. So we had gone onto the blueprint during the summer of 2019.
Yeah.
And then joined the program as of September. And COVID and lockdown really hit in March.
Okay, yeah.
So then we did a couple of sessions, and then it turned into the online sort of mentoring for about 3 or 4 months. I don't know if you remember, where we were having 3 sessions a week, and it was quite intense, but it was great. And then went back into slowly weaving back into sort of meeting back at the Belfry, which is always good fun.
Yeah.
And then we've been on it since. So that was the program, which is sort of the entry level into the blueprint and just laying in the foundations. We then moved over to advanced the following year. And this being the 3rd year running around the track, it's called going around the track, because you have your segments of each month means what. We were fortunate enough to join the board as of September just gone. So that's been fun already. We'd been on the retreat, just got back from the retreat about 3 weeks ago in Center Parks. Awesome. And looking forward to a good year ahead.
Yeah, I think your application was fantastic because you'd done like a video. So Roberto, so I thought that was really cool.
Thanks. So when we heard about the process for the board, and it was said that you've got to do a 3-minute video, I thought, someone sitting there watching Roberto and I speak for 3 minutes, and especially because there's both of us joining, we thought, would it have to now be 6 minutes, because technically there's 2 people. And I thought that might be quite boring. So let's add a bit more context to what we're talking about, what we're doing. So we hired a videographer, got them to the offices, got them to the sites, and then sat around the table and just talked about what it's like working for each other, working with each other, and then why we were looking to join the board. So that was actually good fun, and we've used that video since then. But it was really, really good fun.
Yeah, very good, very good. So your background then, Rohit, what did you do before getting involved in property?
So throughout studying, I was studying sort of technology. My degree was in computing as well. There was always a fun for like there was always a like towards technology. So I sort of followed suit, and then I started working in sales. So I did. I took a year out of university. I worked full time at a company which gave me the grounding for sales. And at the time I was working. I didn't take the year out of university. I was doing university part time actually. So I did my degree part time in the last year, and that allowed me to gain some experience, but also finish off my degree. So I kind of coupled in the sales and technology together, and started applying for other jobs. So throughout the career, it's been sales, business development in sort of IT reselling, cloud sales, software sales, and it's really helping companies to scale. I've worked in, and then my role grew into sort of leading teams and covering different regions like EMEA, US. So I used to travel quite a lot. And I was actually, when I got into property, I was actually working full time already. So my first ever buy-to-let was 2008. I remember it happening vividly. And it was after I'd read Rich Dad Poor Dad, believe it or not. And I mean, I always had a like for property. I always liked the idea of property and what it can sort of bring you. But I think that, that the penny really dropped when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that sort of got the mindset going. Yeah. Into the assets, liabilities, and all of those things. And that really started to set the foundation for me there.
Fantastic. Yeah. And then when did you then make the transition then into full-time property?
It's probably been about 7 years now, I'd say. 7 years. I have done some consulting work since in between, but it's been very much sort of full-time.
Yeah.
And working with Alliance has been working with for about 3 years. So before then, I was doing some sort of consulting in patches here and there, just to see me throughout my sort of buy-to-let and refurb work life.
Yeah. Okay. And then your tell me about your wealth dynamics profile. How does that work? And Roberto's, and then how did you meet also, and then how do you kind of like work as a team?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a creator mechanic, so that's sort of the dynamo. Roberto's a blaze. So it's often been said that blaze just like to talk, and they like people. They work through and through people, and that's really the magic that they have, and their flow. For me, it's a little bit, we come up with some wild ideas sometimes, but then the mechanical side of me comes in and starts to think about, okay, how will those cogs actually turn?
Yeah.
And how can you turn this into a self-propelling sort of machine, so to speak? Like, how can you turn this business, this idea, into something that should start to run in its own right? So that's but the other thing is he's a blaze, but he also loves numbers. And when you understand the wealth dynamics profiles, a blaze and numbers don't really go together. They're almost like two opposites.
That's right.
One is high flying on stage, and then the other one is in a room, happy to spend time on just spreadsheets and crunch numbers, and that's what they love doing. So we work quite interestingly, actually. You might get a different answer from the team if you ask them the question, but you'll hear that we often create chaos, and we've got better with it, actually. But in the first sort of year, and actually I'd say the first 2 years, it's only in the last year we've really sort of matured up a bit. But the first 2 years of Alliance, we really created a lot of chaos in the business, in terms of, it's from the wayside. All right, what are we going to get done now? Let's get it done. Let's go. And then you've got people with different profiles in the company that are really trying to just manage some of that chaos and really understand where you're coming from. We're asking things to get done without actually giving a full breakdown of how it needs to be done and how we would do it. And that, I think, gets overwhelming for some people. So we've now got better, and we've started to write processes for everything that we do. And I learned that from being on Property Entrepreneur. You learn about the assets that you create in a business.
Yeah.
And one of the,
how did you meet up then, you and Roberto?
yeah, sure. So we went to so the journey here was, I decided that I wanted to get into doing developments. I'd done refurbs, but I wanted to get a little bit more educated on some more of the planning rules, finding sites, and all of those things. So I went on to White Box's 3-day course at the weekend.
Yeah.
And I'd known Andy and Lloyd before that, because I'm part of a mastermind with Rob and Mark from Progressive, and they're on there. So I sort of knew them before that, and thought, okay, so this is a good place to start. Let's go here.
Yeah.
Went on the course for the weekend. I was blown away with the content. Really good high energy, and really good content. Skilled people coming in, and specialists in planning, project management coming in, and really giving you the ins and outs of what to do in development. So Roberto was one of the 50 people there. There's 50 people there for that weekend. So you can imagine you're networking day and night. You stay at the hotel, you stay and night networking for that weekend. But Roberto and I never really spoke to each other.
Okay.
There was a point when it was, so here's a funny thing. So there was a point when Andy really made a joke about something, and he really got everyone's energy up.
Yeah.
So he talked some numbers, and then he really made a joke and got everyone's energy up, and he made them all go around tables and everything else, and we all sat back down again. This is my first memory of Roberto. And Roberto says, "Hang on, wait a minute." And then he started asking questions about numbers, and he was going back into the numbers question. And Andy said, "You can't, I've just created this high energy, and you want to go back into doing, these numbers. You can't just do that." And he made him do a forfeit. I think he made him stand on a chair or do something. It was quite hilarious. So I thought, okay, that's funny. And again, I still didn't speak to Roberto that weekend. It was only at the end, when everyone was saying bye to each other, I started collecting some business cards and said, "Yeah, guys, look, we'll follow up. It's great." So I collected a few, got one of Roberto. And Monday morning, you're really high energy. You're looking at things so differently.
As a creator, yeah.
Actually, I remember driving that day. I was getting a train to central London on that Monday, and I remember going there, and I'm just seeing fields and all of those things, and I'm thinking, okay, land. Where can you get this kind of land? It'd be good to see where you can start building things and all of that. So I went into an office there on Monday and called up a few people that I'd got business cards from, and one of them was Roberto. And I said, "Yeah, look, great to talk. Let's catch up." And he said, "Okay, look, why don't we arrange to meet over at my place, Milton Keynes?" I said, "Yeah, fine." I was living in West London at the time.
Okay.
So drove there perhaps a week later, and we were sat in his kitchen, and we were just looking at sites. So we said, okay, let's get on this bit of software which helps you find sites, and let's start looking at sites. So we started looking at some. We started saying, "Yep, no, that would work. That wouldn't work. This is why," and all of those things. And as we started doing that, we thought, okay, let's give this a go. Why don't we start looking for some more sites a bit more aggressively? And I remember in the space of a couple of weeks, we had researched probably about 200 sites at that time, which, to be honest, now is so easy to do, because there's so much software which allows you to do it now. And it can be done in like minutes, but it took us ages. We got the letters out, we got letters, got that process automated. So we started getting letters out to landowners and building owners and everything else. And really started just looking out for deals. So we started that, and we landed our first deal. This was actually through an agent. So we were also calling agents. So we're doing the whole thing, you send letters, you find sites, you contact agents, you contact sources, you speak to other people. We did all of those things. And one of them came up from an agent, which really started it for us. And we said, okay, what shall we call our company? And there was actually a third person, believe it or not,
Okay.
who wanted to be. It was three of us that formed it,
Yeah.
and we were already at the very beginning having some challenging conversations because he wanted a different name,
Okay.
and the name that he'd wanted at the time was Trinity because it was three of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I just couldn't feel the name. It didn't work for me, and so we were having some conflict there. And then after a week of going formal, he sort of resigned. So
Okay.
then it was just Roberto and I. Yeah. So then we started looking at sites. We got an offer accepted. We also then created our network event, and that was sort of 3 months into Alliance, 4 months into Alliance, and that was held in Milton Keynes at the stadium.
Okay.
So that was really good. Alliance Property Meet. We used to get all kinds of professionals there. We got accountants, we got developers, we got people that do buy-to-lets. We had brokers, all kinds of things. So we did that for best part of 2 years, really. Some of it we did through COVID, and then we did our last one just last year.
Okay.
So that's a little bit about how we met, and we've been doing some deals since. And then the recent one we've just sort of finished on and got signed off from building control is the one in Milton Keynes in Fenny Stratford, which we call Fenny One.
And that's the one that we're going to go through now. So your core strategy then, is it, so do you want to just say as to what that is?
The core strategy is to buy buildings, refurb them, turn them into residential units and rent them out. Okay. However, we do keep the option open to sell some if we need to. Yeah. And depending on some JV partners that may come in, their preferred route may be exit. Okay. In which case we're always open to the fact that we may just sell our units as well.
Yeah. And what area do you focus on?
So at the moment it's Milton Keynes and sort of 25 miles out of there, Bedford, Northampton, and those areas. Okay. I'm yet to look at some deals. I'm making some offers on some deals in Camberley at the moment, which is where I live now. But yeah, Milton Keynes predominantly is where we've got our sites. Okay.
So the site that we've got then, do you want to just explain what that was when you viewed it?
Yeah.
And then it was on, how you found it?
Yeah. So this site, it's in Fenny Stratford in Milton Keynes. It was on the market towards the end of 2019, and there's 5 commercial units downstairs, and the upstairs was a gym which had been closed down. So the upstairs really was just a vacant unit upstairs. Yeah. And they had some legacy tenants, commercial tenants downstairs. So the building was on the market for $850 at the time, and came to us through one of the local agents that we know, who had also come to our event and met with us. Right, again, we were building relationships. So came on it. Yeah, it was on at $850. We've done some numbers and we looked at, okay, what would the build cost be? What would the NGDV be? And we offered at the time,
GDV for people who've not come across that.
Yeah, GDV is the gross development value. So what is the value at the end once you've done everything? Yeah. If this is the purchase price and then you add the build cost and other expenses, what will the building be worth? Yeah. So that's we said, okay, what is the GDV, and worked backwards. We worked out percentage profit, worked out the build cost, and said, okay, this is around about the sales price that we think would work. Yeah. And so we offered 780, which was accepted. And then we started the conveyancing process and fell into COVID. And we were going through COVID as we were trying to buy the building. And what had happened, because obviously lending froze. I mean, a lot of things happened at that time. We were still going through it, with the conveyancing. The legals were taking forever because the world had almost stopped to some extent.
That's right, yeah.
then as we started coming out of COVID, we realized that the price was probably no longer what we would warrant it at. So we were negotiating and got the price down to 700, just because it wasn't working on the numbers and it wouldn't make the deal viable.
I think building costs at this point were going up as well.
They were.
Materials and the labor. Yeah.
Absolutely. We were quite fortunate that we already had a build quote from our contractor before lockdown. And we were quite fortunate that he honored the price before lockdown as well. So
wow,
that actually really helped. There were a few surprises further down the road, but had he not done that, it would have turned the deal very differently. So it worked quite well. So we're very fortunate he did that. And we're still good friends with him at the moment, which is always a nice thing at the end of a development.
Yeah, that's good.
So the build cost was it was quoted at around 330, 340. In the end, it turned out to be about 390 in terms of build cost.
Okay.
There were a few surprises along the way.
And what did you convert it into then?
So the upstairs was a gym, and we converted it to 4 flats, residential flats, 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
Quite a lot happened during COVID. So the planning was about to expire as well.
Mm-hmm.
We actually completed on that deal 1 week before planning had expired. 1 week. And at that point, we had the contractors in and started the development, and we had to get sign off from the council that the development had started within the 3-year timeframe. Granted, we also did actually have the 9-month extension because anything that had been granted planning throughout COVID, there was an extension given.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and that helped us, and then we managed to complete just before the end. But there were a few challenges along the way. Because we had already spoken about this deal quite publicly at our events and to our networks, there were people calling up the agents and telling them that we're not going to buy the deal, that we're not serious about it, and wanted to sort of underhand us a little bit. So
wow.
These are surprising things that you often hear about, and we were quite shocked to hear that. I mean, we were not given any names or anything like that, but we were just made aware that this is what's being said, and therefore people are going to try to maybe undercut us or give a higher price or whichever it might be. So we were really motivated to get exchanged and get the thing moving.
How did you actually structure the deal then, and also fund that? Obviously, it was difficult times.
Yeah, so we had funding in place at first, which was purchase and development.
Mm-hmm.
We then proceeded to buy it, and the lender then said, "We're not going to do the development. We're only going to help you fund the purchase." And the rates they were offering were ridiculous because what had happened, we'd spent so long on the site, some of the leases started coming up to nearer 12 months. Therefore, they were not counted in the valuation,
right,
and all of these things. So we managed to find a bridging lender to help us just buy the building. We had one of our partners invested heavily into the project with us as well. Mark, he's still with us, and really talented guy. He's one of our JV partners on this project. Really got a lot of time for him. And then we had some other investors which sort of helped us along the way and invested with us as well. So yeah, it was our cash, investors' cash, really just to get the thing going. So it worked out all right in the end. So
and then the ground floor. Did you how many units was there?
So the ground floor was 5 units. What we did was one of the tenancies were coming up to expiry, so they served their notice and left. Another tenant went bust, so he had left with some rental debt.
Yeah.
So we immediately replaced those. We got new tenants in there. So the building downstairs was fully let on minimum 5-year leases. And we started doing some of the development work upstairs.
Oh, that's good. What
Mine,
kind
so
of
what?
tenant types, and was there any break clauses in those?
Yeah, so these were 5-year leases with a 3-year rent review. But we didn't put any, we put a break clause in one-sided because the tenants had already committed that they're going to be there a length of time. But we also wanted to give them some rent-free period so they can get settled in,
Okay.
and that would help them as well.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. So 5 units on the ground floor, and then you did 4 2-beds upstairs. What would you say? Probably the COVID and financing was the main challenges, but what would you say were the issues?
They definitely were, because what happened was, because we used bridging just to buy the building,
Yeah.
we were then using a lot of our own cash to start the development. And then we had to find a development lender to lend us on the development itself. So at that point, it was really tricky. And yeah, those were the challenges. Some of the other challenges were things that just creep up on you. The roof, the tiles on the roof that need fixing, which were not part of the original quote.
Yeah.
And we had to get a lot of roof work done. When you start tearing back the layers of the upstairs, you start realizing there's more work to be done there as well. We had to get the building insulated. We had to get it fireproofed. We had to get, the council were over a number of times just asking us to do various things, and we were having to do that. We had to deal with issues in the car park. So people were just leaving their vans over the weekend, going to the pub down the road.
Oh,
Their
yes.
vans
So
there.
also the site also had a car park at the back. Is
Yeah,
that right?
we had a car park, and there were some car park spaces allocated to the flats upstairs,
Yeah.
and some were for the downstairs, and there was a handful for visitors. But of course, there was no way of manning or monitoring who parked there and for how long. So we quickly found a solution to that. We partnered with another company that does car parks. And what they did was they managed the car park. So they put the meters in, they put the cameras in, they put the signs in, and any fines that come from that, we take on a revenue split with them. But it means that we don't have to manage that ourselves. So
that's good.
it's a
And
big win for us. And the commercial tenants are happy downstairs.
So the commercial tenants, do they still have spaces, and the flats have spaces? And then is there just the visitor ones, they can just charge?
Yeah, the visitors will just charge, and the commercial tenants can place vouchers or permits on their customers' cars, so they'll be excluded from any payments.
Oh, that's good. And you get a small revenue from that, do you?
Yeah, it's not a lot, but it's handy.
Yeah.
It just means we don't. It's one thing we don't have to think about, and the tenants are happy because not anyone can just park there for any length of time without any consideration. So that massively helps us.
Yeah. So as far as the rents that you achieved then, what were they for the units?
So we've got downstairs for the commercials, we get about 4.5K gross, and upstairs is 4.4K gross. So 1,100 each flat upstairs. So all in building is about 8.9, just under 9K, which is good. So we've got 5-year leases downstairs, and we've got strong tenancies upstairs.
That's good. And then a bit from the car park. Is that kind of about the 9,000 mark? Rohit, I think I've lost you. You've frozen. Mr. Santa's frozen. So we've got 9,000 gross rents, which is
Yeah.
about 108,000 a year. What was the valuation on it?
So the valuation we got in at 1.75, which leaves a gross profit of about sort of 660K.
Excellent. Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. We're still not out of the woods, but we've still got some expensive lending there. But yeah, thank you so much. I mean, we've gone through a lot to turn that building around. We've had issues after issues.
So gross rents, we've got 9,000 and the total then is 108,000. What was the valuation come back at, Rohit?
Valuations are at 1.75, which gives us a profit of about 660K.
Excellent. Yeah, well done to you and the team. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's been a hard slog. I mean, I wouldn't have done it. We wouldn't have done it without our team and the investors that put their trust in us. Definitely. So I'm extremely grateful to all of them. They know who they are, but really extremely grateful to all of them to put their trust in us to get this back for them.
Great. And you, did you change the name of the building?
Yeah, you were going to come to that, weren't you? So yes. So for me, like property is all about legacy. What I do on a daily basis is all about, building a legacy. And the way to, I don't know where I saw it or heard it, but I thought about the way to overextend some kind of legacy beyond yourself is to have a family name on there. And what better fitting name to have on a building than Santa House?
Yeah.
I did say when I announced this at one of the meets that we had, I did say that, the postmen are going to have real good fun during December and January delivering post, because they're going to say, what's this Santa House?
Excellent.
But yeah, so we've done Santa House, and that's just for the residentials upstairs. We could have done it for the commercials, but it would have meant rewriting all the leases and reissuing them. So we thought best not to do that, because there's a lot of legal costs involved in doing that. So
Sure,
it would be best just to keep it in the residential space upstairs. And now we've got a family name on the building.
Excellent. Yeah, great. And what's next?
So we've recently bought the building next door.
Okay.
That one's a little bit more tricky. So it's a grade 2 listed building. It's got planning permission for 5 flats. It did have planning permission for 7 flats previously. We've just put another application in to get 2 more flats. So it just gives us some flexibility. High level numbers on that is around, so we bought it for 715. It was on the market for just under 900.
Okay.
About a year and a half ago. Bought it for 715. Build cost on that is probably around 600K, and it should get us to about 1.9 on the GDV. We're going to rent out the commercial units downstairs. We know the price per square foot, so that helps us. And we're going to let out the residential flats upstairs and at the back.
Okay. And how many units are there on the ground floor for that one?
So there's two commercial units downstairs.
Yeah.
But it's a grade 2 listed building, so that's good fun. And it's quite a historic building for that area. Everyone's aware of it. It's called Pollards. Very historic. I mean, the gentleman who sold it to us, he had been there for like best part of 60 years.
Wow, amazing.
In that place. So yeah, he's got some history with it. And everyone that I've spoken to in that area know the building really well. So we're keen to bring some life to it.
Yeah, excellent. What kind of size are these buildings? Do you know, like the square meterage?
No, I did know, but I couldn't tell you from going back. But yeah, we've got, in terms of the square meters upstairs. So yeah, we've got 5 1-bed, 2 2-beds, which comprises 7 units, and then we've got the 2 commercials. The commercials is probably around 2,000 square foot.
Okay.
2 of them, but I couldn't I couldn't from the top of my head give you the square footage for upstairs.
So good luck with that new project.
Thank you.
What state have you just bought it and you're just starting the refurb? Is that where you're at?
We've just bought it. We're just going through the just getting in all the reports, SAP calculations and everything else. And we are tendering it to some of the local contractors. And soon we'll be looking to start and doing some of the demolition work in the new year.
Brilliant. So top 3 tips for the project you've just done. What would you say those are?
Top 3 tips. So first one I'd say is work really closely with all the people that are involved in the project. We've lost, there's been a number of times where we've spent so much time on the project, but less time informing the people or the investors on on how the project's going every step of the way. And
Okay.
some rightly so, some didn't really care.
Yeah.
But some really wanted to learn. So we started bringing some of our investors in on the internal calls so they can see some of the ins and outs. What I'd say is, keep communication open as much as you can with your investors, also your contractors, also your broker who helps with the finance, and anyone else such as the QS is keeping communication open with all of them. You can very much get tunnel vision very quickly because you're dealing with a problem and not have the oversight to communicate to the team.
Okay.
Second one is keep looking at your numbers and keep asking yourself, would I go into this deal from the beginning if I knew what I know now? The reason I ask that is, and the reason I say that is because sometimes we get so engrossed with completing a project or completing even a sale of a project that we just want to get the project completed, but we haven't stopped to restock and say, is this still a deal? The current times, is this still a deal? Because had the contractor not honored his price before COVID, that could have really stung us. And the third one I'd say is, just have fun with it, because we sometimes get really serious with our team and our contractors and our professional team. We get quite serious with them because you are dealing with a building and there is fire and safety and all of those things that come into play. Sure. But I think there's sometimes you've got to have a bit of fun with it, and you've got to, whilst you're serious, you're looking at the numbers, you've got to look at the lighter side of it and just say that you're providing jobs, you're providing homes to the community, and it's something that we should all be proud of once it's completed.
Yeah, so enjoying the journey as well. There's challenges to overcome, but still.
Yeah, absolutely. There is one more thing I'd add actually. We boasted about this. We'll call it tip number 4 if you want, or a bonus tip.
Okay.
I did talk about this earlier in the conversation, but we boasted about this deal to a lot of people, rightly so. But that could have stung us in a bad way because other people try and get in and influence the agents in different ways. So what we did with the building next door, we didn't mention it to anybody until we actually exchanged on it. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's a great tip. So for people wanting to contact you, what kind of things are you interested in, and then how people, how will people contact you, Rohit?
So some of the things we're interested in looking at in the new year. So one of them is I've come from working full-time and gone straight into business, and I want to work with people throughout the next year and years beyond in helping them transition from working full-time in an employment and where they want to get into business, and actually help them with that transition.
Okay.
The campaign's called Employee to Entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And it's helping those that are professionals who are working, but they feel they can bring more value to the open market. Really, I want to help them do that because I've gone through that transition, and I want to help others do the same. Secondly, is always want to work closely with investors who I would, deem as friends. Mm-hmm. So we're looking for friends who would turn into investors or people that are looking to invest in projects, and maybe learn alongside and see alongside the project and what happens, what are the ins and outs, all of the challenges that come along the way, and the exit at the end as well. So the way people can contact me, so we've got our website, www.alliancegroup.uk. My email is rohit@alliancegroup.uk, and my Instagram is rohitsanta.alliance.
Excellent. So yeah, thank you for your time. Thank you for going through that deal. Congratulations to you and Roberto. Fantastic result, and good luck with the next one.
Yeah, thanks, and thanks for having me on. Really been enjoying this conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Santa, and very happy Christmas for you and the family. See ya.
Right.